Welcome to another exciting episode of Tim and Tom's Film Night. We are your hosts for this delightful journey through cinema history. Today, we have quite the treat in store for you as we discuss the movie Free at Last. The movie This film holds a special place in our hearts as it showcases one of Christian music's most influential bands, DC Talk. I must say, Timothy, that despite your initial disdain for this documentary, I found it to be quite an enlightening and entertaining experience.
Tom, it wasn't disdain per se.
More like a healthy dose of skepticism.
But, alas, here we are discussing the film that has divided our opinions so drastically. I must admit, I was expecting something much more groundbreaking and insightful given DC Talk's impact on the Christian music scene. Instead, what I got was a mediocre documentary with some live concert footage thrown in for good measure. To be perfectly honest, it left me feeling rather underwhelmed and disappointed.
Well, Timothy, I can understand your frustration, but as someone who's been a fan of DC Talk since their inception, smiling, I found Free at Last, the movie, to be a fitting tribute to the band's legacy. It does indeed focus more on the behind-the-scenes aspects rather than an in-depth biography, but isn't that what documentaries are supposed to do? To give us a glimpse into the lives and creative process of those who inspire us? One of my favorite parts of the film was seeing the band members reminisce about their early days and how they navigated through the challenges of being Christian artists in the secular music industry. I also found it fascinating to hear them reflect on the making of Free at Last and the impact it had on not only their careers, but also on countless lives around the world. Smiling, but enough about my personal thoughts, Timothy? What did you think? Any particular scene or moment that stood out for you?
Well, Thomas, I must admit there were a few moments that managed to pique my interest. For instance, I found it quite fascinating how the band members shared their struggles with maintaining their faith while navigating through the often treacherous waters of the secular music industry. It's heartening to see how they remain steadfast in their convictions and continue to create music that not only entertained, but also uplifted and inspired generations of listeners. Smiling, one particular scene that stuck out for me was when the band members reminisced about the making of their groundbreaking song Heaven Bound and how they were able to infuse their Christian beliefs with a distinctly modern rock sound. It's moments like these that remind us of the band's impact on not just Christian music, but music as a whole. However, I must say, Thomas, that overall the film fell short of my expectations. While it does touch upon some interesting trivia about the band's journey, sighing, it lacks the depth and insight that I was hoping for. It felt more like a glorified concert video than an actual documentary. I understand that DC Talk has had a significant impact on Christian music, but this film simply failed to do justice to their story. Smiling, perhaps it's just me being a bit too picky, but I was expecting something more substantive and captivating than what we were given.
Well, Timothy, I can understand your frustration, but as a fan of DC Talk and their music, I found Free at Last, the movie, to be a delightful, smiling trip down memory lane. While it may not have been the in-depth biopic you were hoping for, it was never advertised as such. Instead, what we got was an intimate look into the lives of three talented individuals who happened to be part of one of the most influential Christian bands of our time. The film's focus on the making of their groundbreaking album Free at Last and the impact it had on both the band members themselves as well as their fans is commendable. It was refreshing to see them candidly discussing their struggles with fame, faith, and the challenges of balancing their artistic vision with their Christian beliefs. Speaking of the band members, I thought they all did an excellent job of smiling, sharing their stories, and reflecting on their journey thus far. From the charismatic lead singer Kevin to the introspective and thoughtful lyricist Michael, each member brought something unique to the table. And let's not forget about the mastermind behind the soundscapes, drummer and producer. Oh, Mouth. Their chemistry, both on stage and off-screen, is appreciable, making it easy for viewers like ourselves to connect with them on a deeper level.
Well, Thomas, I can't deny that the band members themselves are talented individuals who have made a significant impact on Christian music. However, I still stand by my earlier assessment that the film itself was lacking in certain aspects. For instance, the direction and editing of the documentary could have been much better. There were moments where the storytelling felt choppy and disjointed, making it difficult for viewers like ourselves to fully immerse themselves into the narrative. Additionally, I found the constant switching between past and present-day interviews to be rather distracting at times. A more cohesive approach would have smiling elevated the overall viewing experience, in my opinion.
While I can see where you're coming from, Timothy, I personally found the film's raw and candid approach to be refreshing. It felt like we were given a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the lives of these three smiling, talented men who just happened to make music together. And while the editing may have been slightly choppy at times, it did effectively convey the chaotic nature of being in a successful band juggling fame, faith, and personal relationships. But enough about our personal thoughts on the film itself, Timothy. Let's shift gears and talk about something more fun. Smiling, which actor or actress would you cast to play each member of DC Talk in a biopic? I've always pictured Kevin as being portrayed by Channing Tatum, Michael by Matthew McConaughey, and Mouth by smiling Jonah Hill. How about you?
Well, Thomas, I must admit you've got a good eye for casting there. Smiling. As for my choices, I always pictured Kevin as being played by the talented actor James Marsden. He has a charismatic charm and a genuine vulnerability that perfectly captures the essence of the real Kevin. As for Michael, I'd cast the versatile and introspective actor, Logan Lucky himself. Channing Tatum, his ability to portray deep emotions while maintaining a sense of humor would bring the complexities of the songwriter to life on screen. Lastly, Mouth. Oh, Mouth. That's a difficult one indeed. I think the comedic genius and masterful producer behind this, like Superbad and 21 Jump Street, Judd Apatow, would be an excellent choice for this role. He has the charm and wit to captivate audiences while still maintaining a sense of smiling, grounded relatability that embodies Mouth in real life. So, Thomas, what do you think? Do you agree with my casting choices, or do you have any suggestions of your own?
Well, Timothy, I must say your choices for casting are quite inspired, especially with regards to James Marsden as Kevin. As for my own suggestions, I'd cast Zac Efron as Mouth due to his comedic timing and growing versatility as an actor. And finally, the role of Michael would be perfectly embodied by none other than Justin Timberlake himself, with his soulful voice and ability to effortlessly switch between vulnerability and charisma. I believe he'd nail the characterization of the thoughtful lyricist. But let's not dwell too much on Hollywood fantasies when there's still so much to discuss about Free at Last, the movie and its cultural impact. One aspect that really struck me while watching the film was how DC Talk's music resonated with a generation of Christian youth who felt torn between their faith and the allure of secular culture. Their songs, such as Heaven Bound and Jesus Freak, gave them a sense of belonging and empowerment to proudly proclaim their beliefs without fear of judgment or ostracization. This theme of identity crisis and finding your place in the world is still relevant today, which is why I believe this documentary remains timeless even after 20 years since its release. What do you think, Timothy? Do you agree with my assessment? Did anything particularly stand out for you regarding the cultural impact of Free at Last, the movie?
Well, Tom, you've hit the nail on the head there. Free at Last, the movie has indeed had a lasting impact on generations of Christian youth who have felt torn between their faith and the allure of secular culture. DC Talk's music, particularly their groundbreaking album Free at Last, served as a beacon of hope and solidarity for many who thought they were alone in their struggle. Songs like Heaven Bound and Jesus Freak empowered listeners to embrace their faith proudly without fear of judgment or ridicule. It's comforting to know that even in the digital age, where technology and culture continue to evolve at breakneck speed, timeless messages like love, forgiveness, and redemption still resonate deeply with people from all walks of life. As for my final thoughts on Free at Last, the movie, it's a bittersweet affair for me. On one hand, I applaud the band members for their willingness to share their stories and personal struggles with such vulnerability. It's refreshing to see artists open up about their journey, warts, and all. However, as a film buff and avid documentary enthusiast, I can't help but feel let down by the lack of depth and cohesion in the storytelling. The constant switch between past and present-day interviews often left me feeling disoriented rather than engaged. That being said, for diehard DC Talk fans like myself, this film is a must-watch. It offers rare glimpses into the lives of three talented individuals who changed the landscape of Christian music forever. So, Thomas, what are your final thoughts on Free at Last? The movie, do you think it did justice to the band's legacy and cultural impact? Are there any moments or scenes that particularly stuck out for you? And finally, before we wrap up this episode of our podcast, I implore our viewers to comment, subscribe, and share this video with their friends and family. Let's continue the conversation about faith, identity, and the enduring power of music to inspire and uplift us all.